this is the problem with this whole round. This is a great example of what garbage is. If you're gonna serve us crap like that, then you're really wasting our time. And you guys...
Joe Bastianich built his television reputation by telling chefs their food was garbage.
These are the 9 best amateur cooks in America. If they give us seared scallop with fruit salad on top, I'm gonna throw it back in their faces.
But there was just one problem. Joe Bastianich wasn't a chef. He had never run a professional kitchen or trained in culinary school. He was a former Wall Street bond trader who became one of the most feared judges in food television. So how did a restaurant businessman earn the authority to judge America's best amateur cooks, and why did he suddenly walk away? Long before television audiences feared his critiques, Joe Bastianich was growing up in a family where restaurants weren't just a business, they were everyday life. Born in New York in 1968 to renowned restaurateurs Lydia and Felice Bastianich, Joe spent much of his childhood surrounded by kitchens, waiters, customers, and the constant pressure that comes with running successful restaurants. His mother would eventually become one of America's most respected Italian chefs and television personalities, while Joe absorbed something slightly different from the experience.
We're gonna make just simple egg pasta. This is about a pound of flour. You make a well here. There's 4 whole eggs and 5 egg yolks.
He wasn't fascinated by becoming the person behind the stove. He became fascinated by everything happening around it. Unlike many famous food personalities, Joe never trained as a professional chef. Instead, after attending Boston College, where he studied finance, he briefly stepped away from the restaurant industry and worked on Wall Street. It looked like he was headed toward a completely different career, but finance gave him something that would later define his success: an understanding of investment, expansion, and how businesses grow. Eventually, the restaurant world pulled him back in. Together with his parents, Joe began expanding the family's restaurant business. Rather than creating recipes, he focused on operations, partnerships, branding, and identifying opportunities others missed. That decision changed everything. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, Joe helped transform what had once been a successful family business into a hospitality empire. Restaurants bearing the Bastianich name earned critical acclaim, attracted celebrity chefs, and became destinations for diners looking for upscale Italian cuisine. Joe developed a reputation as someone who understood how to build profitable restaurants while maintaining high standards. His success was based on recognizing talented chefs, building strong businesses around them, and refusing to compromise on quality. That distinction would later become both his greatest strength and the source of endless criticism. As the restaurant empire expanded, Joe formed partnerships with several major culinary figures, most notably Mario Batali. Together, they opened multiple acclaimed restaurants across the United States and internationally, earning prestigious awards and helping redefine modern Italian dining in America. Their business ventures stretched far beyond a single restaurant, covering hospitality, food, wine, publishing, and international expansion. Joe also became deeply involved in the wine business, writing award-winning books on Italian wines and developing vineyards and wine labels that further strengthened his brand. While celebrity chefs were becoming household names through television, Joe was quietly building something much larger behind the scenes. Ironically, many television viewers would later assume he became famous because of MasterChef. The truth is almost the opposite. MasterChef made Joe recognizable to the general public, but by then he had already spent years building one of the food industry's most successful business portfolios. Talking about MasterChef, when the show launched in the United States in 2010, producers needed judges with very different personalities. Gordon Ramsay brought world-famous culinary expertise and explosive energy. Graham Elliott represented creativity and encouragement. Joe Bastianich brought something entirely different: business. He evaluated dishes the way a restaurant owner evaluates whether customers would actually pay for them. Every plate wasn't just food. It represented standards, consistency, presentation, profitability, and professionalism.
I think the toast cheapens the dish.
So you don't serve garlic bread in your restaurants?
No.
Oh, so
There's no such thing as garlic bread in Italy.
Contestants quickly discovered that impressing Gordon Ramsay wasn't enough if Joe wasn't convinced. His judging style became legendary. He rarely smiled. He spoke calmly, which somehow made his criticism even more intimidating. Sometimes he'd stare silently before delivering a brutally honest verdict. Other times he'd dramatically throw disappointing dishes into the trash can, a moment that instantly became one of MasterChef's most recognizable images.
It's the most important dish of your life, guys. You see this? This is
Some viewers loved it, others absolutely hated it. But almost nobody ignored him. That polarizing personality helped make MasterChef one of television's biggest cooking competitions. Joe wasn't trying to be the friendly judge. He became the obstacle contestants feared most, and producers understood exactly how valuable that dynamic was. Yet as the seasons continued, criticism started growing alongside the show's popularity. Many viewers questioned whether Joe was too harsh. Others argued that because he wasn't a professionally trained chef, he shouldn't judge aspiring cooks with such confidence. Online debates exploded after nearly every episode, with fans divided between those who appreciated his honesty and those who believed his approach crossed the line into arrogance. Ironically, the very qualities that made Joe unforgettable were beginning to reshape his public image. Instead of simply being known as a successful restaurateur, millions now saw him as television's toughest judge, and that reputation would soon follow him everywhere. Joe's partnership with Mario Batali had built one of the most successful restaurant groups in the country. In 2017, Batali became the subject of multiple sexual misconduct allegations. The empire the two men had spent decades building was suddenly under intense scrutiny. Joe was not accused of the personal misconduct alleged against Batali, but his role as a business owner still came under scrutiny. In 2021, New York's Attorney General announced a $600,000 settlement with Batali, Bastianich, their management company, and several of their restaurants. The investigation found that the organization had permitted a hostile work environment involving sexual harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. Joe separated from the partnership as the restaurant group was dismantled and ownership changed hands. 3 years before those allegations became public, Joe had already stepped away from MasterChef. After season 5, he left the American version of the show. Despite years of online theories, there is no solid evidence that Joe was pushed out because viewers disliked him. At the time, he publicly said it was his own decision to step away. He remained on MasterChef Italia, pursued other television projects, and eventually returned to the American judging table in season 9. Away from the judging table, Joe reinvented himself again. He turned to music, performing live with his band on multiple occasions.
4, 5 seconds for wildin', and I've got 3 more days until Friday.
It's a striking contrast to the stern businessman viewers remember from the judging table. Off camera, he's often described as thoughtful, humorous, and deeply knowledgeable about food, wine, and entrepreneurship. So what really happened? Joe Bastianich, he didn't disappear. MasterChef didn't expose him as a fraud. A former Wall Street trader turned his ability to judge restaurants into a television character powerful enough to overshadow everything else he had built. That character made him famous. It also made every criticism of his businesses, his qualifications, and his behavior far more public. Joe Bastianich may never have been a chef, but he understood something many chefs never learn: how to turn taste, authority, and controversy into a brand. And whether viewers loved him or hated him, they kept watching.